Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of the Fireside and Some Flights podcast. It's just weird. It is just weird, isn't it? But yeah. I'm Nelson.
Yeah, I'm Dalton.
And today we are, I guess, talking about random stuff again.
Yeah, whatever we want. Yeah. Maybe we need it's a Fireside episode of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast. But that's a tongue twister.
That is a really big tongue twister, yeah. Part of the Fantasy and Some Flights Corporation. It's an off branch. We should incorporate.
Right.
No, that just seems like a lot of work. Anyways, But yeah, so we are drinking tonight.
Yep. Always are.
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course. Dalton, what you want to start us out?
Yeah, I'm having Bell's Bright White, which is a Belgian-inspired wheat ale. So I don't know where the white comes from, but it looks all snowy.
The can is white.
The can is white. That is the thing that they chose.
Yeah, I think that is kind of where that dies.
Yeah, right. It is crisper than I think I expected when I had it the first time. It's a little more fruity almost. Not it's fruit, really strong.
Yeah, it's not like an IPA level of fruit.
Right, it's not quite hazy or something, but it's
tending towards that.
Yeah, tending towards that, a little crisp. So I think maybe the white throws me off because I think of winter beers, and it's not quite like a spiced winter beer or something. You
don't feel warm.
Right, right.
Gotcha.
But it's tasty. It's really good.
Oh, good.
So I think it was part of the pick six that you picked me up at one point. So
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Of course.
What about you?
So I'm drinking Balcones Texas Rye, which is a 100% rye mash, 100 proof. You did comment that I tend towards just buying things that have at least 3 digits in the proof.
Yeah.
Which is really not intentional, actually. I do not really even look at that when I'm buying.
Yeah.
So I am a little upset at myself because so I went to the liquor store and it had this 94 rating on this bottle, and I'm not sure if I picked up the wrong bottle, if it was mislabeled. But it is
out of 100, would you rate it at a 94?
No, out of 200 we may get there. But you tasted it a little bit and we were kind of talking about it, and I think it has some hints of chocolate and leather.
Yeah. And
I described it as it feels like the experience of when you're biting down on a belt and getting your leg sawed off during the Civil War.
Yeah.
So it's
just the blood and iron and
the
leather
blood,
taste.
iron, just the whole body experience kind of feels like what I'm feeling when I'm drinking this. Yeah. So this would be a 1 cheers for me.
Yeah.
Which is a little upsetting.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cheap, so
that's good. Yeah, at least you didn't spend too much on it.
I don't know what I was thinking. I was just ooh, that's a cheap one with a really high rating. I should have been skeptical. Yeah. But yeah, it's
super dark in color. I think we said that about the bottle when we were looking at it, but it's I don't know, it's a deep rusty color or something, very dark.
Yeah, I don't know. This one will be good to either pass out or have after a couple of other bourbons, maybe. Yeah. The 6th bourbon of the night.
Yeah. It gets relegated to being a mixer.
Yeah.
I think. It's good to have a bad one every once in a while so you know kind of what you're looking for.
Kind of reset.
Right.
Yep.
All right, there are bad ones.
And I'm glad I had the Templeton one first, which is also 100% rye mash. Because if I had this one first, I don't know if you could convince me to try another 100% rye mash. So that is good that you sent me the Templeton first. So
I'm glad to hear it.
But yeah, so we'll suffer through this one. So let's start with Mind.
Yeah.
What have you been reading recently or watching?
Yeah, I've been a couple things. So first of all, I am getting deeper into the Witcher series. I think I've been talking about that, but it's continuing to hold up. So I just wanted to mention that.
And I think you may have already told me or mentioned it, but how big is that series? Is it set 5 books or is it 20 books?
Yeah, I think if I remember right, it's 5 with the 2 prequel books, so 7 total.
Okay. That's digestible.
Yeah, for sure. And they are pretty they're on the shorter end of the spectrum for us, because I think one of them was as short as maybe 9 hours. And the one I'm on now is 11 or 12.
Really short.
So,
okay. I was expecting at least a 15 to 20.
Yeah, they're shorter than I expected.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
So I've got a couple of things that I'm reading, which is kind of interesting, an audiobook, a real book. And then one of the things that I kind of wanted to highlight tonight is I finished Rise of Kylo Ren, which is a graphic novel, or I don't even know if it's considered a novel. It's pretty short.
Okay.
But it kind of goes pre-episode 7 and kind of shows Kylo Ren in the Jedi Temple when he's being trained by Luke, and then his connection with Snoke and how that kind
Greatest
of played.
villain of all time.
Oh yeah, I mean, just that climax though.
Yeah, right.
Just oh man, did not see that coming. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting because he had a connection with Snoke when he was a youngling.
Okay.
So, and Snoke wasn't necessarily like the all evil guy during this time. Like,
Gotcha.
He would go visit him and talk with him and stuff. And then, but it was pretty good. It kind of went into the story of when Ren destroyed the Jedi Temple. It kind of followed some of the other Padawans, I guess, the other Jedi training under Luke, trying to hunt him down. And then it goes into a little bit more of the background of the Knights of Ren, which was really cool to see because like they're kind of teased. I didn't feel like I got a super satisfying explanation of what the Knights of Ren were in the movies, but it's a whole like criminal organization type thing that like you have to go through. It feels kind of like the mafia.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like you have to go through trials to like get kind of initiated into it, and so it kind of goes into that a little bit. It was
He's
good.
so like full of himself.
He really is, yeah. But yeah, it was good. I really enjoy the Star Wars graphic novels. I just think that they do a really great job with the art.
Yeah.
And so I just really enjoyed that. I'm still making my way through Rhythm of War. Okay. So the audiobook is slow and steady. Not really that slow though. The audiobook is broken up into 5 parts to make it like able to be downloaded onto your phone because that's how long of a book it is. I'm in part 4.
Okay.
I'm in I'm about halfway through the 4th.
Cool.
And I don't know. It's not as exciting for me. The first half of the book was awesome. This like middle, I don't know, quarter is kind of slow.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of why I've slowed down a little bit because when I'm sitting down to read it, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just not super interested in any of the stories.
Yeah.
Some of the stories haven't been picked up in a long time in the book. So with the Stormlight Archives, they jump around story to story, which kind of keeps it fresh. But for some reason, it's kind of been focusing on 1, maybe 2 stories.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, they're just not drawing me in. And I think we kind of talked about this with Oathbringer when we read through it. It's just like, you're at 180 hours of this book. You kind of get fatigued.
Yeah.
And so I think that may be where I'm at.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. It is really cool to see all the other ties to the Cosmere and just kind of how the different orders of Radiance are using their powers now.
Very cool.
So
yeah, I could definitely see like Oathbringer did kind of come together all of a sudden, and I kind of regained it was like, whoa, wait, hold on, everything's happening,
Yeah.
But I think you're right that he doesn't quite follow the normal, like in the story arc episodes that we've talked about, he probably doesn't really follow the path of like a rising action to like a climax. There's kind of like these almost intermissions halfway through the book where he's just like doing other things and telling other parts of the story, and that can start to drag.
Yeah, I think I will be really interested to analyze the story arc once all 5 books have been published. For like, there's 10 books, 2 miniseries, quote miniseries.
Yeah.
But I'll be interested to reanalyze that because it's kind of like when you're in the midst of it, it does feel like a drag. But when you zoom out and kind of take in the whole story, I'm wondering if it like has a much better story arc there. Also, I just want to go ahead and say that like I love these books. This conversation should in no way deter you from listening or reading these books. These are phenomenal books and you should read them, but I feel like this conversation turned a little negative. And I just wanted
We're allowed to complain about things that we love.
Yes, and I do just want to reiterate that I highly recommend these.
For sure.
Recommend these books.
For sure. Speaking of like, I don't know, all-time favorite series for us, we shared in the Discord, but you've already seen that Avatar is coming out with like Nickelodeon and Paramount have put together Avatar Studios to start writing additional stories in like the world, stories and movies, I believe, in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
They have so much content that they can pull from because Aang is what the 100th. I don't know. There's been 100 avatars before him.
Yeah,
that was
potentially even more
number.
than that.
Yeah,
like I think it's a couple hundred. Yeah,
and so it's almost like a Star Wars sandbox where you can just like pretend, like you can just go to this 70-second avatar and just tell their story. And
yeah, for sure.
Wouldn't have any ties to any other series, so you can kind of do really creative things. So I'm excited to see where they go with that.
And there already are some like comics that were put out for following Aang, like after he, well, I guess I don't want to spoil too much.
The Avatar: The Last Airbender was 3 books.
Yeah.
Or 3 seasons of the show. The
Right.
comics are the 4th book, and it kind of bridges the gap between Last Airbender and Korra.
Yeah, because the first 3 books take place over a fairly short amount of time.
Yeah,
like,
actually,
4 months or something, 6 months maybe.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is crazy to think about. And so it just tells the story of like the couple years following. So point is though that they have that to draw on. And then they also have already introduced several past avatars, past lives of Aang, that they could like. We would love at least a couple episodes on Kyoshi, right?
Yeah, I want
the murder avatar.
Yeah. The TVMA HBO produced Kyoshi avatar. Let's go.
Absolutely. They brought back the original creators, Mike. I'm gonna mess up these names. Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. How do you say this? Konietzko. It ends in like TZKO, which I'm screwed.
Yeah,
there. I don't know what to.
I'm glad you're saying it and not me.
Yeah, usually you're the one screwing up the names. So you take my phone. Like you read these, but it gives us hope, right? Because they have tried to reboot Avatar a couple of times, and it's always. I guess not a couple of times. Like they obviously they did the movie, which was terrible, and then there was like rumors of a live action thing, which I don't know where that ever ended up.
So they were doing that with Netflix, I believe.
They were, yeah.
And I know that the original creators or the original writers left it because they were not pleased.
That's right, yeah.
But from what I understood, they were still pursuing that. So I don't know if this news changes that at all.
That's a good question because I know, at least from the articles I have seen, the intent is for everything that the Avatar studio puts out will continue to be animated, which is a good call. It should be. Yeah. With the way the magic system works and everything, like it looks campy and goofy if it's in
right.
Yeah. It's just better as an animated series. So I was excited to see that kind of design choice as well.
So we have gotten a airbender avatar with Aang, and Korra is a waterbending avatar.
Right.
Do you think that the next couple ones we're going to see a fire and a earth bending?
So that would be super interesting because like there's a big technology gap between Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, right? Because like in the Legend of like Avatar: The Last Airbender is like starting to get into like some industrial feels, like a little bit steampunk, but like not a lot. For the most part, they're still like kind of feudal,
Yeah.
And like the Fire Nation is starting to drive industry, and like that's one reason that they kind of rise to power is because they have industry and nobody else does. And like the Legend of Korra, it sort of like evens out the playing field. There are no more like the 4 nations are not divided anymore, and they're kind of in the industrial age, right? So if they decided to do the Avatar after Korra, first of all, I would love to see an old Korra, like an aged Korra. I think that would be really cool.
That would be cool.
Just to kind of see like, because she's kind of hot-headed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of hot-headed is actually an understatement. Like she's extremely hot-headed. So it would be cool just to see her as like a mature, like kind of how the Avatar like communicates with their past lives.
Yes.
It would be cool to see her as the mentor character. And then, but if they did like a fire one, that would be actually like pretty far down the road, but I would love to see like a young Roku, right?
Yes.
Like going backwards.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And showing like the young, who Roku, if you haven't watched, is the Avatar before Aang. So he's kind of Aang's mentor.
Which is kind of interesting that you said that. It did not even cross my mind to go past Korra. I just assumed that all the content that they were going to be drawing on was prequels.
Mm-hmm.
But good point.
Yeah, it seems pretty open-ended right now that they're just like, yeah, we're going to do... they didn't really define what they were going to do. They're like, we're going to do like movies and shows.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I think they're really taking a page out of the Disney Star Wars book here to see like, okay, if we just make a studio that's just going to do this, like what can we make out of it?
I am all for this.
For sure.
I'm really excited, especially because they have their writers back, the original writers back. Mm-hmm. And I will be interested to see what timeline they take place. And I prefer the more feudal age with this setting. Yeah. The steampunk is just not something that really drew me into Korra. So but we'll see. Maybe we get a modern day Avatar. Right. That would be kind of interesting, right?
That would be kind of interesting.
So
do you know, like, the other thing that's interesting, like, So I even had to just look this up just now just to be sure. Avatar I started coming out in 2005.
That's crazy.
And it came out, I think, just 3 years in a row. I think it just 2005, 6, and 7, and the whole thing was done. So it's been a long time, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that it has like such a following still, it's kind of, every time it gets released on Netflix, there's this huge boom of people that kind of get into it.
So many new memes.
Yeah, so many new memes pop out, which is awesome. And so it's just really cool that, you know, it is like 16 or, you know, years old at this point, and they're kind of revitalizing it. They're like they're willing to kind of put a little energy into it. So
I'm so excited. Yep. Awesome. Want to talk a little bit about table stuff?
Sure,
like what we've been playing?
Yeah, yes, but there's not a lot for me, unfortunately. I think
kind of we took a trip last week, so and we were going to play a lot of games because we had these great ambitions, and we just it never came to fruition.
Yeah,
but one of the things that I don't think we've actually talked about on the podcast, which is a good time to bring it up, is Stonemaier Games is releasing a new game probably beginning of Q2 of 2021 called Red Rising.
Yes.
And so Red Rising, as you have heard if you've listened to previous episodes, is one of our favorite books of all time.
Yep.
And so Jamie Stegmaier is co-designing a Red Rising board game, which takes place in the universe of the story that we love.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hand management type game where you are working to draft leaders, and each leader has an ability or victory points if you have them in your card or in your hand at the end of the game.
Yeah.
You have to make some choices on if you're going to play them, but the whole thing is supposed to take only about 30 to 45 minutes as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be this nice filler in a theme that we love.
Yeah.
By the time that this episode releases, I will probably have pre-ordered it. Mm-hmm. Actually, maybe. He said early March.
Okay.
And so this will be kind of our first episode in March. So maybe. All that to kind of tie into our book episode is that our next book analysis is going to be released on April 8th.
Yes.
And that will be Red Rising. Yeah. To kind of like, because we always have wanted to talk about Red Rising, and this seemed to be the perfect time to do it, because that's about the time that the game will be arriving in our hands. And so we'll have played it, we'll be able to talk about that, and then we'll be able to talk about the amazing book that we love.
For sure.
Which is Red Rising. So
yeah, I remember having this like big conversation for the last book analysis of, do we want to do Mistborn or do we want to do Red Rising? We settled on Mistborn mostly because we talk about Sanderson so much.
That worked out well.
Yeah, it did work out well. And so now it's really exciting. Yeah, that like the board game is going to be released right around the time we're going to release or record and release that episode. So the next book episode will not be like Red Rising. We're going to do a book topic episode next. But yeah, April 8th. So will be the next. Will be the Red Rising episode. And it's not super long if you want to pick it up and try and read it.
Yeah, that gives you about 5 weeks. And I think if you're physically reading it every night, it's probably a week long. Yeah. I think the audiobook is less than 20 hours. So, I mean, it is like the Fellowship of the Ring length. It's not a huge commitment.
Right. And we do love it.
Yeah, we do love it. And our episode is only going to be focused on the first book, which is called Red Rising. Yeah. So I think it's actually Red Rising, and then the trilogy is called Red Rising, which is slightly confusing.
Yeah, it is very confusing.
But we are only going to
It's
be...
also not only a trilogy at this point.
Oh, yeah.
He started writing up like he started writing the follow-up trilogy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But Red Rising, the first book, will be our next book episode. So go ahead and... Or, I'm sorry, our next book analysis episode.
Yeah.
So go ahead and pick that up from your library, or grab it on Audible, or however you read books. I don't know how you read books. But go ahead and pick that up. Read it for 5 weeks from now.
Yeah, exactly.
So Red Rising, that should be able to be pre-ordered right around now. Mm-hmm. Maybe in the next week. It depends on if you're kind of a member of the Stonemaier website. Mm-hmm. But check that out. They're going to have the deluxe and the non-deluxe edition. So it looks really cool. It looks like a game that I am going to be really interested in for that 45-minute time frame.
For sure.
Also, the art looks dope.
Nice.
The art.
You need first of all, it's coming from Jamie Stegmaier, so like I expect
it's gonna be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, but like Scythe, right? Like he puts out games with high component quality.
Absolutely.
So I expect that. But also like if you're going to do a board game that's this heavily theme dependent, you got to kind of lean into it a little bit.
Yeah, this one kind of feels kind of weird because we usually have a lot more board games that we've been talking about, but it does give us some time for some icebreakers if you want to hop in to do some of those.
Absolutely, let's do a couple.
So I had my wife send me one. Let's knock out a board game icebreaker. So this one is from Caleb. So what is a game that you love?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's more.
This is a great icebreaker.
Yeah. What is a game that you love but would never recommend to a group of all new players trying to learn based purely on the rulebook? Spirit Island.
It's fine to hear him. Yeah. All right, let's get outside of like we got those out of the way.
Yeah. That's fair.
We haven't said it in a while, but Spirit Island has like a god awful rulebook. It's just like the worst.
Yeah.
So, as much as we love the game, get someone to teach it to you or watch a video because the rulebook is terrible.
That is totally true.
Mm-hmm.
The question is interesting because if I'm not going to recommend Twilight Imperium or Spirit Island to a group of new players. And so like I have to like put myself in that mindset and then think about rule books.
Yeah.
And so like what rule books would I or what games would I want to have a new player play? That's a good question.
I really struggle with the Small World rule book.
I have not read that thing in forever.
I don't remember why it is, honestly. I just remember like really not liking it. I think maybe it's just like inconsistent with terms. It's like
That's a big one.
That's a big deal, right?
Especially for new players.
Yeah, when you're like, I think it's one of those games that maybe struggles with like rounds versus turns, and it's like you need to be really careful with those like terms because they can be very confusing very quickly. In Spirit Island.
Spirit Island has a bad rule book. So.
Yeah, I've heard that.
We'll just keep saying it.
Yeah, we'll just keep saying it. Just drive that home. Small World is one that is like, it is within reach for new players.
I think so.
You know? It's going to be a bit of a stretch. It's like you don't want that to be a gateway game, mostly because it's a dudes on a map type game, like you're attacking each other all the time. But it's one that it's a dudes on a map game that there's no player elimination. Like that really helps. You cannot be eliminated from that game. It has like a goofy theme and feel to it. So like,
and I think that's really big.
Yeah,
because you can sit down with a new player, even if you are experienced, and maybe have the conversation with them. They're like, it's a higher complexity game, so like it may take a while for you to get it and kind of set their expectations. But it is such a goofy, fun theme that like when I'm playing like Small World, I want to win, but I don't care if I lose, type thing. And so like you just have fun with it. And you're like, I'm going to be the berserking ghouls, or the berserking hobbits. Like, that just seems hilarious to me. So.
Yeah, the Dragon Master Hobbits.
Yes.
The OP play. I think part of it, too, is that like Small World has like some kind of wacky concepts from like a board game mechanic perspective. Yeah. Of like retiring. Like I'm like, what does that even mean that I'm going to like give up on a race and pick a new one? Like makes me feel like it's like, who am I playing? Like no one. You're not playing anyone. You're playing like 3 or 4 different races over the course of this.
Right.
Like get that through your head. And so...
That is hard.
When you read the rules to it the first time, it's like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. I'm giving up on the people that I've, like, worked so hard to build on or whatever. And so, like, when you, have someone explain it to you, then they can go, yeah, this is going to, how this is going to work. You're going to play this race for 2 or 3, like, turns. You're going to run out of steam, and then you're going to retire them and pick a new one. And, like, still be scoring points off the old one.
I think having someone to explain that game to you makes it a lot better. Because one of the things that I know we struggled with when we were playing it consistently in college was... kind of trying to explain how many tokens you needed to take over a territory.
Yeah.
Because it was
should be really simple.
It should be really simple. And what we transitioned to was you need 1 plus the number of cardboard pieces on that territory.
I think it's 2, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Where if it's like, that could be a mountain. That could be...
like a native.
A native. Whatever. That could be some sort of special tokens that the trolls put there.
Yeah.
Like, because... I think in the rule book you're trying to like say like it's 2 plus the mountain, and if there is like okay, just count the number of cardboard pieces.
Yeah,
add 2 to that.
As long as it's not a dragon, you're good.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that one's a good one. Maybe for that next step into games,
right?
But it's also just such a wacky theme that it
for
would
sure
just be fun to play
for sure. And if you are interested in it, then like put it on our game night forum or something, and we'll play it with you on one of our like game nights through the Discord, and that's a great way to learn it.
Yeah. Ooh, I would love to play Small World on one of our game nights.
Yeah.
Because that's just something that we can never like table for whatever reason. It's just hard. Like, my wife isn't the biggest fan of dudes on a map games, and so she's usually playing with us, so we tend away from those. And then if we do have enough people,
Mike is the same way. Like it's one of his favorite games of all time, but his wife doesn't like it, and so he just really struggles to get it to the table.
And then if we do have enough players that we can play, we end up playing Dune or something a little bit more complex. So I think that'd be a great.
It fits in like an hour 45, 2 hour kind of time slot.
Super easy. Now I have to come up with one.
I know, I do. I did my part. I jumped on quick because I was like, I don't want him to take small world.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think I'm going to go back to another one from college, and that's Dead of Winter.
Oh, yeah.
I don't quite think that the rulebook is horrible. It's just that there are a lot of like ticky-tacky rules in Dead of Winter that are not necessarily defined very well in the rulebook. That we played Dead of Winter for 2 years and we're still realizing that we were playing rules incorrectly.
Yeah, and like that is 100% true, and they're not even minor rules. Like
right.
Okay, like what was? I think it was there's
noise?
Like what's that?
We were screwing with the noise.
Noise we screwed up,
and calling zombies.
Zombies we really screwed up.
Yeah,
for like the longest time. And that's like one of the main actions that you can do, and we were just totally playing it wrong.
Yep. I don't know. I think it's kind of because the player sheet / cards kind of give a very brief summary, which at least my first interpretation of the player aid is completely different than what the rulebook states.
Yeah.
And so that, like, I'm reading, this is one of the first like rule books that I read through to learn a game. So that also may be playing a factor, which I guess is a good factor to play in this question.
That's right. Yeah, it's accurate to the question.
But when I read through a rule book, I like to watch a video, then read through the rule book, then play. But like then I was like reading through the rule book, and then I would kind of play around with it. When you have a rules reference sheet right there, I just read it and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's how that works.
Right.
And then I just kind of never looked at the rule book at that section again. So I think I'm going to settle on Dead of Winter, which I think Dead of Winter could be a gateway game. If you have at least one person that has played it before, but because it's cooperative, and I think
if you don't play with the betrayer.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Which is an optional rule in the rule book. You can play with it or not.
Yep. Each card has two sides, and one is with the betrayer, one is without. So yes, that is a good caveat. If you're not playing with the betrayer, it's a cooperative game that can be quarterbacked pretty heavily, but ideally you're not doing that. But I mean, the theme is so great. You're fighting off the zombie apocalypse that it kind of like brings people. It has a really great table presence.
It does with like the vertical, like the stands.
Yes.
Zombies are on stands and everything, so it does have a really good table presence. And we talked about in the Gateway Games episode that like that can be really important to a new player. Like, hey, dude, do you want to come like kill zombies with me? Like, we're going to be on a team.
Yes,
and they're like, I don't know how to play. And it's like, well, that's fine. It doesn't really like, I can walk you through your turn, to be honest.
Yep. We win or lose together type thing. And I think
it's not overly hard.
It's not overly hard. And the more I'm thinking about it, the more I like it as a gateway game because it is cooperative, but you also have your secret objective.
Yeah.
That's the only thing, or I guess that thing cannot be quarterbacked. And so the players have some sort of freedom that they can that they can play, and they have to complete this objective that no one else knows. So it kind of gives them a little bit of path. But then, so I think that Dead of Winter could work as a gateway game if you're not playing with the betrayer and you have someone to kind of run the zombies mechanisms.
That's true. Yeah, it's another common thing with co-op games that as long as there's somebody who can play the bad guy's turn,
exactly,
it can work. But whatever you do, don't make the new players read the rule book.
Yes,
you have to teach it to them.
I have not seen a lot about this game in a long time. I mean, it was the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
In the board game world.
Because the Crossroads cards were such a cool idea.
The Crossroads cards were such a good idea. And Plaid Hat Games said that they were going to bring that back in, but maybe they did. I just haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen it either. So if it did, it probably didn't do well.
Yeah. I used to love everything Plaid Hat put out, but now recently I'm just not jiving with their stuff. They are releasing Summoner Wars, though. So there is a Summoner Wars 2.0 coming out, which is very dangerous for me and my wallet. But yeah, Summoner Wars, I don't know if I've mentioned it. That is my most played game of all time.
Yeah, because of the app.
Because of the app. I have well over, I think last time I checked, it was over 1,200 games of Summoner Wars.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's so much.
I played a lot of Summoner Wars. and that was just online games against other people, not like training games against the AI.
Wow.
So I played a lot of Summoner Wars. But anyways, you brought an icebreaker for us.
I did bring an icebreaker. Yeah, thanks Caleb for that icebreaker. That was a good one to talk through. Mine we're kind of trying to set up the conversation for this upcoming book topic. So it won't be a book analysis episode, but a book topic episode focused on character development. So just to kind of like get our brains turning about that and get people thinking about it, we each like keep like a tab in our like notes about just like icebreaker questions, right? Just like throwing them down when you like think of them. So I thought of this one a long time ago, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts. And I don't know what my answer is either, so I'm going to be figuring it out as we go. Do you think that George R.R. Martin's habit of killing off important characters is effective or just lazy writing?
Interesting. Okay. I'm excited for this question. It's making me think. Okay, so I think killing off characters in and of itself is not lazy writing.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that Martin does it, that's a good question. I love kind of like season 1. I'm not going to spoil anything because that's kind of on the restricted. Yeah. That's in the restricted area for us.
Yeah, we haven't covered it too much yet.
Like the level of characters and their importance in the story that he kills off there are just blindsided me, which was amazing to the story.
Yeah,
and I wish that more books did that. Mm-hmm. I would love it if I'm reading through Stormlight Archives and a main character dies. Mm-hmm. Like that would be, I would never see that coming because I think in a lot, actually not all of Sanderson's books, but a lot of Sanderson's books are the books that we're reading now. I feel like the main characters are pretty safe.
Yeah, I would agree.
Where, they may lose their powers, they may get injured and have to fight through some adverse scenario that's, not perfect for them, but for the most part, they're going to be there at the end of the book.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is not that way. And so I don't think so. I don't think it is lazy writing. I think that it is effective in how he does it. Mm-hmm. And I just keep thinking. So definitely in the first half of the Game of Thrones universe, it's done well. In the second half, there may be a couple of characters, especially in the season 8, which I hope becomes non-canonized.
Yeah, right.
That I do think is lazy
I did ask
writing.
Specifically about George R.R. Martin.
that is fair. And Martin has not written season 8 for the books.
Right.
So, okay. I will take that out then. Then yes, I think that it is an effective writing tool.
Yeah. I think, so you brought up the point of making the reader question whether the main characters are safe. I think that is the key. That's really the strength that he brings specifically to the first book, which is A Game of Thrones, right?
Yes.
That is the name of the first book. So like that's why we always call it that. Because you're right, there is like one very specific character who is a very main character who dies, and unexpectedly, like I think when you think he's going to die, like your mind goes like, yeah, okay, that's sure. But he's going to get out of it.
They can't kill him.
They can't kill him.
He's the main character.
He's going to get out of it. And then you're like, oh shit, like he's not the main character anymore. What just happened? Who's the main character now? And then like from then, it just sets the tone, right? From then on, you're like, oh, is this character safe? I think as it goes on, even into the third book, so not even the TV show for me, but into the third book, I think there are some deaths that are written for shock value.
Okay. I can see. Yeah, okay.
I think I'm okay to say the Red Wedding.
Yes.
Like that's just a term. You don't know what it means yet. And I think it's a fairly common term. Like people who,
Yeah, I think that is not spoiler.
Yeah. I think can be construed as shock value and not necessarily continuing the theme of is the main character safe. I'm seeing your face. There may be room for debate there, but that's my impression of that scene.
I think that the Red Wedding in the books is significantly less of that kind of lazy writing, kind of shock value than it is in the TV show.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of foreshadowing that goes into the books that you don't see in the TV show.
That's very true. Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of like intrigue and things that are building up to it.
Yes. And even from characters, like there's foreshadowing in Daenerys' arc in the book for the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
And that you just don't get in the TV show.
Yeah.
I think the TV show also, it kind of lends itself towards that because it feels very dramatic. Mm-hmm. Like it feels overly dramatized. More so than what I felt in the book.
Yeah.
And in the book, it did feel kind of like sudden. Whereas in the TV show, it felt kind of like I was still like, I kind of knew what was happening because I'd read the books, but like, I was just like, it was like eerie. I don't know. It's interesting.
It's such a hard topic for, I think, writers to tackle because they do spend a lot of time building into the arcs of these characters. If it's a character that doesn't have enough development and then they suddenly die, then I think it kind of comes across as like that shock value of like, oh, you just needed to write in a death, and so you built a character that could die.
Yeah. Martin has a quota of 1 death per 100 pages, so he has to meet it.
Right. I think Cedric Diggory feels that way in the movie and does not feel that way in the book. Like, in other words, that he feels in the movie like he was a character that was written to die.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And in the book, he does not feel like he was a character that was written to die.
Yes, I agree with that.
You know.
Oh.
So they're kind of having to like walk that line, you know, has this character had enough development, but also like if they put so much time into developing a character, I could see how it would be like super hard to kill them off.
Not only that, but like because of the limited time and the limited story that they're able to tell in the movies, specifically with like Harry Potter compared to the book size, that it's like, oh, we're going to put a lot of time into developing Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
People may go into that thinking, oh, okay, what's happening with Cedric?
Yeah, true.
So that could be something.
We've talked about Demon Slayer before. There's some wisdom in character deaths in Demon Slayer, like the demon cycle.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's, I think probably not like you still know who the main character is, and like he feels very safe, and so like it doesn't quite get to the success I think that Game of Thrones or I guess Song of Ice and Fire to call it by its correct name gets to. But I don't know, I think when I started thinking about that question, I started thinking like just trying to track that through different novels, because it's easy to kill a character at the end of the book.
Yes.
Because they've already been through their arc and it's for effect. But it's hard to kill a character in like the middle of the story in a way that's effective. Yes. Boromir is another good example.
Boromir is a really good example.
Yeah, it feels like his arc is cut short. He has so much left to do. Oh,
yes. Because because it's right after kind of that low point. Mm-hmm. Or it feels like the turning point of his story, where, you know, he's going.
It's definitely the turning point of the Fellowship.
Yes, it is the turning point of the Fellowship, but like kind of Boromir's entire life. Like he falls short, and it almost feels, you know, he's going to fight for Merry and Pippin, and he's going to redeem himself.
Yeah,
and it doesn't happen.
And that's it.
Yep.
And he has to, and his like kind of personal climax is apologizing to Aragorn.
Yes. Oh yeah, that was sad.
Yeah.
Do we get that in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, a little bit. It's he I think in the movie he like does like an apology.
Oh,
and
yes.
He's saying, he's kind of like asking him to kind of take the torch or whatever for him.
Yes. Yeah, because I remember him talking about Frodo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good icebreaker.
Good.
Both of those were really good.
Yeah, for sure.
That one I'm going to be thinking about for a while now, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go through and analyze all the character deaths that I know. And, like, do they just not want to finish this arc? Like, is that what Martin was doing? Is like he got tired of this character?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't actually know where to do this.
Yeah.
Or what to do with this character. So maybe we'll just nix that guy.
Right.
Call it a day.
Right. Or does it enhance the effect of the story and move the plot along and make, enhance the experience, I guess, of the reader?
I will say that Martin is very, very good at making you care about characters, even though you know that they may die on the next page.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Like, I feel very connected with so many of the characters in his stories, even though that threat is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though they might be evil.
In the character development episode, I think we're going to see a lot of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's definitely a skill of his.
Yes.
Sure.
And how he can take someone that you hate into someone you love, into someone you hate, and then D&D just kills them again. Figuratively and literally.
Yep.
But yeah, no, so I'm really looking forward to our next
book
character.
topic.
Yeah, our book topic, character development.
I think it's going to be fun.
Yep. And of course, April 8th, we are doing April 8th, 2021. If you're listening past 2021, then the episode will have already been released.
That's right.
And you can listen to it at your leisure.
Yeah.
But April 8th, we are going to be doing a book analysis of the first book, Red Rising, of the Red Rising series, Red Rising.
You're going to be thankful that we told you to read this book.
Yes.
Like, it's a favorite.
It's a good book. I am
awesome.
really excited to reread the book.
Yeah, right?
Because I have only
do it about once a year since I've read it the
really?
first time.
I've only read it once.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, you're really going to enjoy rereading.
So I'm looking forward to it. I am really excited.
Cool. We're going to trip over each other on Audible, I guess.
Nope, I turned that setting off.
I know, I was about to say, I got to turn that setting off again. So.
But yeah, good Fireside episode.
Yep.
If you want to reach out to us, I think the best places are Instagram or our Discord.
Yep.
So you can find either of those links on our website. They're also in the show notes. or in the podcast description. So just open up your phone and click on join the Discord.
Yeah.
You can join the Discord for a bunch of fun topics, but we also do a monthly game night, which is the second Saturday of every month.
Yep.
So hop on there and we will play. That's all done virtually.
Yeah.
So you just need to probably have Tabletop Simulator or another way to play. Well, it's kind of all described whenever games are sent out. So
for sure.
But awesome talking with you as always.
Always.
And cheers. I look forward to our next one.
Cheers.